Since the last podcast, we've played 2 league games, one against Leicester, one against Brighton. They're very different games. Bees, will come to you first on the Leicester game. That was pretty impressive after an international break, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's definitely the game I'd rather talk about of the two. Yeah, it was really good. I think a lot of people were rightly concerned before the game, what with all the injuries and everything. But no, it was just sort of like classic Liverpool performance, really. Just as the games against Leicester were last season, they seemed to be, I don't know what the right word would be, but they sort of like getting a big result when Liverpool need one seems to happen against Leicester.
And a big XG, massive goals, shots, chances, differences, isn't there? The XG is against Leicester is always huge. It seems to be last 3 games. I don't know about before that, but last 3 games, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think this one was perhaps a little bit closer than the ones last season. I think they from memory, they did have a couple more chances. Yeah. But again, I mean, they had a couple of chances that, Alisson stood right in front of Jamie Vardy. I mean, it's probably a high value chance, but he's never going to score because there's nowhere to put the ball.
It was offside as well. There was one. Was that the same one in the second half with the ball over the top?
2 big chances in the same phase.
Yeah, that's
offside.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, and I think that's what we're seeing as well with the statistics and stuff this season. It kind of feeds in a bit to Brighton as well, but it's sort of like, our goalkeeper's really good, so other teams with their offside big chances aren't scoring them, so they don't get ruled out, so they stay in there. And then our strikers put their big chances away when they're offside, and then they get removed from the stats. So some of the XG figures are, a little bit sort of warped by that. But I guess that's just how it's going to be from now on and stuff. But I mean, Leicester was brilliant. I mean, it's probably the performance of the season, and it was, lots of stand-in players and stuff, wasn't it? It's great.
Well,
just going on. Sorry, just to jump in. What was talking about missing chances of XG? What was the chance of Salah against Brighton? Change subject, but that just came to mind. That must have been in the end when he took the shot. He was virtually on top of the keeper, put it past, bobbed it into the ground past him.
Probably about 0.35, 0.4.
Yep.
Yeah, big chance level. Yeah, definitely
a big chance. Yeah,
100%.
So,
yeah. I know it was. that seems to be how it's going. Mark, what did you think? Because there was a little bit of angst on the site before the game, for good reason, because we just lost players to all sorts. Salah to COVID, and every piece of news that we were getting before the game seemed to be bad.
It's funny. I was actually quite serene before the Leicester game. Perhaps more so because I just feel, Rodgers has never really got a positive result against Liverpool yet, having left. And I felt that, this was some quarters of the media were calling him favourite and all sorts of crazy stuff like that. So we were missing a lot of players, but I felt that the media had done us a real favour, heaping pressure on Rodgers and his team. And I always felt it was going to be difficult for them to go out and get a win at Anfield, especially when our backs were against the wall. Klopp could galvanise the team with a great team talk, saying, Leicester are coming here as favourites because we're missing a couple of players, but all you guys have the capability of wearing a red shirt and are so talented and so on. So I really was very positive.
Just won the league by 18 points.
Yeah.
We've really, we seem to be continually underrated, which is quite remarkable. And it was the kind of thing where I thought, well, we are missing a tremendous amount of players, which is a worry. But I just felt, let's see the first 10 minutes, see how, the lay of the land. And it was just self-evident that Leicester went into their shells straight away, and we came out firing, and there was just no looking back. It was really just a matter of time. And in the end, they did very well to keep the score to 3-0. So no, I felt pretty good before the game, and, just totally vindicated by Klopp's mentality monsters again.
Paul, it seemed like Evans actually had a shell on his head when that cross or corner came in for the own goal, didn't it? Because that's some own goal, that finish.
I think the funniest part of that was to look at Bobby Firmino's expression. That's the type of goal that they don't like in Brazil, even if it's scored for your own team. You know, he was horrified. He was horrified. You know, it's the beautiful game. They play on the streets, and it's, you know, it's just this passion and life. And it was just, I think, for him, such a disappointment to see the ball go in like that. So yeah, it was. It certainly, once that first goal went in, I mean, even before then, we were absolutely swarming them. It just did not seem like they were going to be able to live with it. And you know, also you had I think Curtis Jones played an absolutely fantastic 90 minutes there, and it was the kind of game where beforehand you could make a case and say, well, we've got these youngsters, similarly to what happened now in the Champions League game, I'm sure we'll discuss just now. You can make a case to say, we've got these youngsters on the field. Oh, it's a worry because of what we're missing. We're missing Thiago, we're missing Hendo. But the thing is these players are at Liverpool for a reason. You know, Jurgen Klopp doesn't keep passengers around in the squad. And I think they were more interested to show what they can do rather than what we're missing. And it was just self-evident. You've got a guy like Diogo Jota. He started so magnificently. You know, he certainly wasn't concerned that Salah was missing. He was just ready to offer his 100%. And I think the whole team mentality was optimal for the game. And, you know, again, it seemed like we wanted to prove to everybody how good we are. And it was just set up perfectly. Really, you couldn't get a better opponent to play when you're trying to set yourself up. They're a counter-attacking side. So once they 1-0 down, it just gets worse for them because we can drop off. So it was just a perfect.
It's a shame the Brighton game had to follow it, really.
I just absolutely, we'll go on to that, but it didn't look like it was going to be Bobby Firmino's day, did it, Paul? Because he had a 2.3 XG in this game and scored from his least valued chance, which was the header.
It was
painful.
It was painful watching him. I think when he got, when the turn, it was Jota that played him through, wasn't it? A brilliant turn. So, you know, but then as soon as he was through against Schmeichel, he kind of thought he just had a bit too much time. Yeah. You either want to, sometimes you just either want to rush it and you haven't got time to think, but he had sort of just enough time to think. It wasn't a bad effort, was it? He put it.
Oh no, it was unlucky not to go in. It's inside of the post.
Didn't quite catch it right, but like, what was it? Was it West Ham where the guy Fornals had the shot that he didn't catch right and it went in off the post?
Yeah.
But it comes back off the post and then I'm gonna try to think.
Then he gets another touch on it and it nearly goes over the line, doesn't it?
It hits him.
10 millimeters apparently.
Oh.
Go on, Ram.
Have you got the footage of that?
Not the footage, but I can get the image up. Yeah, definitely.
So I put on the piece today. I put the two. Somebody linked to something with the clip of the Man City game, and where you can see that the ball. They said 11 millimeters. This was 2 seasons ago, and it was 11 millimeters. And you can look at it and you can go, yeah, that's 11 millimeters. And then on this one, they said 10 millimeters. And that's it, brilliant.
Oh yeah.
So you can look at that, and there's a ball is I think it's 22 centimeters wide. So the diameter. So 220 millimeters. So if you look at the bottom one, you can say, yeah, that's 11 millimeters. And if you look at the top one, that's supposed to be 10 millimeters.
Yeah, it's not.
And if you
1 millimeter.
If you zoom in on it and you really zoom in, you can see a tiny fur of like a row of pixels. And I worked it out that over 99% of the ball is definitely over the line. And if that is 10 millimeters, then that means that the ball is 7 meters wide. So the ball would actually be wider than Peter Crouch's tall. It's ludicrous. So my problem with that is it didn't cost us anything. But my issue is when they say, well, that's 10 millimeters. It's not, unless that image is not a clear representation of what the cameras were saying, and it's, you know, and the error is there. I don't, as I say, if it's 1 millimeter, then if they just say, God, you know, it wasn't hopefully over the line, it was 1 millimeter from being over the line, which is what it looks like. And when measuring it is what it suggests. But I don't get why they then come out and say that's 10 millimeters. So that's virtually the same as the Man City one, whereas the difference is massive. So as it happened, I didn't even notice at the time. It wasn't one of those, because it came off Firmino's knee or his arse or his thigh or whatever, it just came and hit him, didn't it? And he's like, and it didn't, I just thought there's no way he's going to score today. It just had that feel about it. And there was another chance that came his way with a goal gaping, but it didn't fall nicely to him. It kind of bounced off him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was a crazy. But yeah, so I'm still annoyed about that, just because I would reckon that is the closest, apart from the goal that wasn't in the Villa game last season, where they admitted that the technology failed. I would imagine that is the closest
non-goal.
Closest to being a goal that hasn't been a goal. And I can't remember what the game state was then. Was that 1-0? So was it kind of, would it have made?
Must have been 2-0, I think.
2-0,
at least. It was second half, wasn't it? So
I can't remember when we got the second goal. Was Jota, wasn't it?
Yeah, just before half time, yeah.
But we were still, Leicester was sort of still had a bit of fight about them until, so not a vital goal, but I think obviously going from 2-0 to 3-0
wraps it up.
Well, game over as was it AC Milan, Andy Gray, that's never obviously the case, but it must be something like Bees, don't know if you know this, when teams are 3-0 up, what are the chances of them not winning the game?
I don't know, but I would think as well, I mean, that was well into the second half. So, I mean, that would have been even more substantial than Milan. I mean, I suppose there was obviously that example recently with Tottenham, who were 3-0 up against West Ham with about 5 minutes to go. So it does happen. But,
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, it does happen. But yeah, I mean, it's got to be very, very slim. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it actually happened twice this season so far with West Brom and Chelsea as well. All second half goals, but that was the weaker team defending the much stronger team. So perhaps the odds were much better there.
Yes. Yeah, that was, you would expect Chelsea to come back in that game, didn't you? So, but so Daniel, you were saying that you brought up Firmino. I mean, his header was it was a great header, and it was great that he scored. But it just feels like he's obviously low on confidence at the moment. Still contributing in some ways, although he had been poor before that. But it just feels like some of the recent games, certain players feels like they're running on empty, and it's been
fumes.
Running on fumes, yeah. So, but it's hopefully we'll have some players back for the weekend. Sunday at Wolves.
It felt just to come to you, Bees, on the Brighton game. It felt like it was a little bit of fumes with that, because we didn't. I know we've had the disallowed goals, but we didn't create much in that game, did we? Bees.
No, we didn't. I think it was 6 shots and 3 of them were in the first 10 minutes. So yeah, it was a very sort of blunt performance on that front, which I guess is sort of to be expected. And I think once we scored, we kind of were happy not to particularly attack after that.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think, did you put in the analysis article, it was like one of the worst attacking performances under Klopp, at least in terms of expected goals?
Yeah, 0.3 was joint worst with the game against Man City. But that was in 16-17. But like you say, game state's so crucial, because we score the offside goal, and I'll put that offside image up now, but we score the offside goal in the first half, and then we do score in the second, and then just stop playing. So if we're not trying to attack, then you're not going to be creating much. Mark, is that offside?
I was pretty uncomfortable with this offsides, just because I felt that where Kevin Friend drew the Leicester defender, I can't remember who the defender was, Brighton defender, seemed peculiar. It seemed to be on his outside foot. This just worried me a little bit. I felt Salah could have got a couple of extra inches had it have been on his shoulder. So I was a little bit worried about that. If it's drawn correctly, then I've got little complaint, but it does seem from this picture he's used it's almost like the guy's doing the twist with his body, that his right foot can be the furthest.
Should be his left hip.
Yeah, is that right? I mean, did they use his right foot coming across?
Yes.
Almost like his leg, it's so I was a bit concerned about that. But again, I mean, we've Paul's written about this a lot. We've all debated this a hell of a lot. It's the essential problem appears to be that we're using a technology that is not fit for purpose. In other words, it appears like it needs a margin of error, an on-field decision, similar to what we've got in cricket, to make it work better. Just to take it back to Bobby's non-goal, a goal that we were looking at a moment earlier, I'm more satisfied with Bobby's situation because there's 500 frames a second. So we know we're looking at it, okay, it's not they're giving you a graphical representation of the ball, which I think is actually not clever. If you've got 500 frames, just give us the actual camera shot, then we can all see it. But even so, it's 500 frames. So I'm quite happy to have a laugh about it and go, wow, Liverpool done by 199th now. It's amazing. Whereas I'm a bit worried about these continual offsides decisions where it's like, well, it depends where he drew the line. It depends which frame they used for when the ball left the attacking player's foot for the pass. It's usually one of 3 frames, which I'm already worried about. Why not then give the attackers the advantage and use the 3rd frame, the most attacking frame?
Daniel, sorry to interrupt. Daniel, can you find the Thiago one where he's releasing the ball to Mane?
Absolutely. That's a great example. They
The Everton game.
Yes. So it's on that same article.
Yeah.
So it should be right next to the one you've just.
Yeah. There we go.
Just above it.
This really worried me. This really worried me, this decision.
I mean, it's hard to, when you look at it. When you look at it close up, the ball is kind of sausaged. Yes. Because of the 50 frames per second rather than 500 frames per second. Yes. So if it was 500 frames per second, you would have a round ball and it would be on his foot or leaving his foot. But because it's 50 frames a second, you get the blur. And so you've got but actually for that, I'm not sure because Mane was coming back.
He was coming back.
Yes. If that actually works
for or against.
But I mean, the point of this piece, which I mean, I mentioned, as I say, I've had some quite bad disagreements with Dale Johnson of ESPN a decade ago, which I outline in the piece, but he seems to be really doing the sort of due diligence on the VAR stuff, and fair play to him for that. And the one thing that I didn't know, I've been talking about margin of error, and I really got into it with the cricket stuff as well after the Brighton game, and then in this piece today, I've looked at both. But I didn't realise, in talking about margin of error, that somebody would actually go away who's not a Liverpool fan and check all the offsides this season for the disallowed offsides by VAR. And he says that there were 16, there have been 16 disallowed goals this season by VAR, and 5 of them are virtually when the lines are touching. So if the lines are touching, you can say that the camera rate isn't.
Margin of error. Yeah, margin of error.
The margin of error would be if you draw a thicker line, and if you've got the attacker and the defender still their line still either side of a thicker line, you've got a margin of error and you've got offside.
That would be a fair way to do it, of course.
So he says that there have been 5 that didn't have sufficient margin of error. Now, one of the ones that did have sufficient margin of error was Sadio Mane's header at Brighton, which we all celebrated. I thought, I'm actually starting to think that more from crosses, I will actually celebrate from a cross, which is perhaps a bad idea. But on first viewing, I thought that's a goal. When you see the replay, visually, clearly offside. He's a yard offside.
You don't even need the lines.
Don't even need the lines, which is what I thought VAR was going to do. Now, you've got five this season out of the 16 that did not have, according to Dale Johnson, did not have sufficient margin of error. 3 of those 5 were Liverpool goals. And the only 2 out of the whole thing that cost any points were Liverpool at Everton and potentially Liverpool at Brighton, where he said that Salah was as good as onside, as good as level, and that was early in the game, so we might have taken an earlier lead. Who knows what would happen after that? The Mane one was in the 94th minute of 95 minutes. I don't even think Everton had a chance to attack, really. So that would have been a clear victory denied us. But it's just weird that 3 of the 5 that haven't had a sufficient margin of error have affected Liverpool, which has got to be a really
Remarkable.
Black Swan.
Black Swan, yes. And there have been lots of Black Swans this season. So
that's a link.
You're going to get me to talk about Black Swans?
We've had a few.
Yeah.
What was the phrase? Slightly grey that have rolled in oil.
Yeah, I don't ask me to call it my own. I can sometimes write sharply, but I can't. I can't ad lib or remember. No, it's just been mental, and as most people would accept it. But when you just actually go through them all, to have 2 of the 11 players shortlisted for the world's best player to be injured with serious knee injuries in the same game.
Yeah.
And that game also includes a massive VAR error on the Pickford challenge on Van Dijk. That includes 2 of all the VAR decisions that I've just discussed. They didn't. Dale Johnson, from what I'm aware, didn't analyse the Virgil van Dijk one, which was again another where I think the lines were actually touching. So
where they used his this part of his shoulder when they could have indeed used a fraction later, and he would have been onside. It was totally subjective.
I've seen them redrawing on various points of the shoulder on and it's kind of like that's just a load of old rubbish. But so that to lose 2 players and Thiago, obviously his knee has been a lot more seriously injured than we thought he'd be out for a week or 2. He hasn't played since. I think we're getting on for a couple of months now, aren't we? Still experiencing pain apparently. So just been that, and 11 centre back pairings, which was mentioned on one of the broadcasters. I think we've played 18 games. Is that right?
Yeah, I was just wondering, Beast, are you aware of a record for centre back pairings in for Liverpool? Because I wouldn't know what even would a benchmark be. 4, 5.
Well, I suppose it depends. When they say 11, are they probably counting like League Cup and stuff like that? I suppose maybe, but even so, I mean, it's a lot, isn't it? I mean, you think 50 years ago, they probably used the same 2 players for the whole season. And obviously it's going to go up a little bit from those days. But I can't imagine it's ever been as high as 11. I think I saw a tweet as Klopp had 36 different combinations in 5 years.
So nearly a third.
To have 11 different ones in, call it 3 months is just crazy, really.
I'm just thinking we had a similar problem at the World Club World Cup, whatever it's called, around that time. If
Henderson played centre back.
So we had Fabinho was obviously filling in there, but then I think he was actually out in December, wasn't he? So Henderson played there. I'm trying to think who else. Do we bring?
Oldham had a game as well. I'm not sure if it was around that time. Genie. I'm not sure if it was around that time or
that was
before.
Previous.
It was before. It was also against Brighton. It was also Brighton
in a 3.
Quite right.
But so we brought Phillips back, didn't we, from Stuttgart, and played him, and then sent him back to Stuttgart in. But actually, he's the couple of games he's played, he's been pretty outstanding. Bearing in mind that he's not the quickest, he's not a special talent or anything. But that's been a really good bonus of the season out of all the and I say Reece Williams has done extremely well as well. So we haven't been let down. And the weird thing is, isn't it, that we've actually started keeping clean sheets and having better defensive records and only really conceding dodgy penalties and things like that.
Yeah, Fabinho doesn't know how to concede an open play goal as centre back.
Has he never? Is it 6 games or 8 games or something?
9
8 games in league in Europe and only 2 penalties conceded. Yeah.
Wow, really?
He's had a couple of cup games. He played there against Wolves with like the 16-year-old Keanu However. And he played the Lincoln game that ended 7-2. But yeah, in the proper competitions, 8 games, 2 goals conceded, both penalties awarded by VAR as well. You can argue whether they should have been or not, but
well, we're not even going to argue whether I forgot to mention it in the. I can't believe
the Sheffield United one.
I shouldn't have mentioned that, should I? No. Oops.
I would say that I've never been as baffled looking at a still image, but the previous time I was that baffled was the Mane offside. In both instances, I looked at them and thought we're safe. You know, Mane's onside, and in that video one, you thought, well, it's clearly outside the box. So yeah, I can't believe I didn't mention that. Yeah, there can't be many. The only other time I've seen a free kick that looked outside the box be given as a penalty by VAR was when Harry Kane jumped into Adam Lallana.
Yeah,
that's a really weird thing as well. Although in that case, the penalty had been given, or was the penalty given by the VAR? Mike Dean gave the free kick, didn't he, outside the box?
He gave the free kick, yeah.
Yeah, and
they didn't check whether it was a foul or not. They just checked whether they thought it was inside the box.
But that's what they said, and then later on they said no, he did check that, which was the same as with Pickford. No, he only checked for the offside, and then later it's like no, he checked for everything. And so I don't know where all these things keep coming from, the PGMOL or the Premier League. But there seems to be different. That's another thing that's pissing me off, is the different explanations that unfold afterwards, as if they're kind of fudging it to sort of, to fit the evidence rather than honestly explaining what the decision process was. But the other Black Swan thing was something that I thought about, and I got Bees to check, but it's 116 goals in our games last season. I think we scored 90 odd or something, 80 something, and
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So almost 120 goals, and only one of them was a deflection, which was Curtis Jones's against Aston Villa. And then at Aston Villa, in 31 minutes, we conceded 3 heavily deflected goals that weren't just. I mean, we had Adrian in goal. He'd started badly. We were up against it from the start anyway, but they were just going into. And again, Grealish scored another one the other day where it looks like a pretty powerful but simple shot straight at the keeper, loops off a defender, goes into the far corner. And I would say that all 3 of those deflections turned savable shots into unsavable shots, unless the goalkeeper just happens to be covering that part of the goal for no logical reason. So
just in respect of expected goals on the Aston Villa goals, I actually had a look at, I think it was the Understat stats. It was very interesting. The first one was a 1 in 16 or 1 in 20 chance, something quite low. The second one was a 1 in 50, and then Grealish was a 1 in 10. And I think if you multiplied them through, I can't do the numbers now, but it was something like 1 in 16,000 for all 3 to go in, and that would be over a 90-minute period. So over the 30 minutes would
very
be
good.
Just unspeakable. So I mean, of course, to get one would be reasonable. A 1 in even the most unusual one, a 1 in 50, but to get even 2 would be.
Well, 2. I could only think of 2. Sorry, if I do it that way, not that way. I can only think of 2. I thought the Shaqiri goals. I think did he come on as a sub in the game as well?
He did. He came off the sub. 2 remarkable deflections against De Gea. Remarkable deflections.
Which you don't get very often. We took those. We're happy with those. But I don't know what the XG would have been on those shots. But I mean that's a 3-2, 3-1 defeat, not 7-2.
Correct.
Another thing that other people have been pointed out was how many 7-2s we've been involved in since pre-season. So it was a 7-2 in pre-season, a 7-2 against Lincoln, 7-2 against Aston Villa, and then our under-23s lost 7-2 at the weekend. And that is like, how often would that? So you actually got the live thing up there, Dan.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you can actually do the maths. Yeah.
2% for McGinn.
50 for the second goal, correct?
Yeah.
3% for Barclay.
1 in 33, and then 1 in 10.
9% for Grealish.
But
Yeah.
if you also factored in with that 1 in 16,000 chance, whatever, if you factored in the closeness to the post that the ball ended up,
That was remarkable. It was remarkable.
the Fabinho one, I think, had Fabinho come on, or he'd been moved to centre back, and it just hit the back of his heel, and it kind of curved. It curved like it was going to go wide, and then just curved inside the post, and you just thought, you know, the luck, the bad luck. You know, most seasons you'll get good luck and bad luck, good decisions, bad luck. Last year there was the whole thing that Liverpool are, you know, VAR, Liverpool, and I think Bees, did we end up with +2? So in the on balance, we ended up with 2.
Mid-table. We were mid-table in VAR decisions, I think. Is that right, Bees?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe slightly above halfway, I think. Something like that. But yeah, it was +2 at the end of the season, but we're at -7 for this season. We've had more go against us in the last 6 weeks than pretty much any other team has had since the beginning of last season. Not every team, but more than most teams, yeah.
Yeah, which is...
The one interesting thing I must say, I've got to say, is that, you know, I was sat on my couch, must be 2 years ago, nearly to the day, and I think all of us were probably in similar positions, quite forlorn. I think we were about to fall. I think it was 5 points or 4 points behind City, and they were really, really too strong as it was. And I really felt, well, that was the end of it. And then, you know, Van Dijk lobbed the bar onto Pickford's bar, and Origi scored. And I remember thinking to myself, this is a 1 in 10,000 event. We're going to pay for this. I actually said to mates of mine, we were sitting, I said, we're going to pay for yours for this one, boys. This was a big one. It was a big. So I suppose over time they do even out.
They don't even.
It really feels bad. It really feels bad this year. It feels terrible.
Not evenly. They don't even out evenly. That's the, you know.
You're right. They don't even out evenly. It evens out in clumps.
Yeah, exactly. You get, I think, if you look at 2013-14, that felt like a season where everything went right. We had a really good, and everything went right until Henderson got sent off, actually, didn't it, really? Yep. We didn't have a lot. Second half of that season, it wasn't the best team. It was a pretty poor defence, but it was a good midfield and a great attack. And it felt, we've had seasons where it felt like we rode luck. Now, even if you think of Rafa's best season, 2008-09, I'm trying to think of how many opposition players. I don't know, Bees, if you remember
12.
this.
12 red cards. 12. I think it was 11 or 12. I think
it was insane. I'll take your word on that. And
I think so. Yeah, 11 or 12. I think.
And a lot of them for bad tackles. But then we went in recent seasons. I think we went 3 years without somebody being sent off against us or something, and we've had a couple, I think, this year. So, but even the Christensen one, he didn't get sent off by the referee, and I don't blame the referee for that because he was so far away, he had such a bad angle, and it was a fast, long ball, direct ball by Henderson. And I'm trying to think who else has been sent off against us. Somebody else since then, since Christensen. Is there anybody, or was that it? Am I imagining?
Gone blank. Hang on.
I'm just thinking. I think you are correct.
I thought there was 2 this season.
Richarlison, obviously, but that was right at the end of the game.
How late was that? That was, and we still scored a legitimate goal after that. That was what I thought was a legitimate goal. But yeah, that's not going to affect the game. That just affects
Christensen.
Yeah, so the Richarlison one affects Everton's next 3 games. So it's one of those things that if Everton were playing one of our rivals, it would actually work against us. But that's, you know, so it just feels on balance this season has been an absolute clusterfuck. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong.
So Paul, I think your point on clumps is actually probably the maybe the smartest. You know, it's you know.
You've got a lovely head of hair, by the way, Mark.
Oh, you know, it's, you know, I actually really put a lot of gel in tonight, knowing that the video is going to be on.
I can't
it's not going to move. So, you know, I'm only 19 years old. You have to remember. Really, you know, I'm just going to reach my peak now. You know, just coming out of school. You know, gap year. Then, you know,
heavy kick round, as they say.
Yeah. So the interesting thing for me is that I think firstly, I mean, it is beyond all argument that we are being absolutely decimated by lady luck, by poor reffing, by injuries, by all these things, and yet we sat top of the table. We've qualified top of the Champions League. We've played the hardest fixtures.
Nice link, Mark. Come on, tell us about your article. Come on.
No, I mean, I think, it's the kind of thing that I think is self-evident. It's, it's like, I think it's just too easy to forget that we walked the title last year with 7 games to spare. It's something that, and again, I mean, we kind of discussed this in preseason. The 4 of us are kind of old enough to remember a time where seasons were decided by 6 or 7 points, and that was considered, a bludgeoning. That, wow, they kind of ran away with it. And I mean, Liverpool going, we obliterated one of the strongest sides ever assembled. I mean, it was over 2/3 into the season. So we arrive in this new season and everybody kind of thinks, well, Liverpool had all the luck last year because of Liverpool and all this nonsense. And really, the reason why we had all the luck is because we were the best side and we made all the luck. And there was no reason why it wasn't going to continue. And the fact that we've now had evidently all the worst luck has only highlighted this fact that we're sitting, there we are, we sat top of the table, top of the expected goals. In terms of points, I think we are just behind Chelsea's expected points, which I suppose actually speaks quite highly of Chelsea because they lost to us as well. So perhaps they are a better side than maybe they've been given credit for. I'm not sure about them yet.
Can I just jump in on Chelsea? I think I was talking about the RPI stuff. I think I'm right in saying that Chelsea have had the easiest fixtures
by far. If you look at the teams they've beaten, Paul, they've beaten one top half side so far.
Right. So that would explain that. Again, this is why after 9 games, it's quite a handy exercise just to work out who you have played. And on things like XG, you're never going to come away from Manchester City with +4 goals, and you're never going to come away with +4 XG. There are a lot of games that are tight games, and if you play all the tight games in the same period, it's not going to give you a really clear picture of how good a team is. The fact that we played, that's another issue, is that we have played. How many we've played? We've gone to City, we've gone to Chelsea.
Top 8. That's just Spurs.
Yeah. So, which is again that shows that we've had 11 players out this week, although that was 11 players listed as injured, but not necessarily out for a game. A couple of those are back now. But I haven't counted how many injuries we've had this season. Do you know that, Bees, off the top of your head?
No, far too many. I don't think anywhere lists sort of them all. I try and keep a record of it, but it's quite hard to know who's injured. And you've even got stuff now like obviously COVID absences as well as what you'd consider like football injuries.
Yeah.
But
I'll
I think
throw them all in together, like if anyone's out for a non-suspension reason, then,
I mean, it's currently 11 officially is the current injury list,
But that's with Naby Keita and Trent Alexander-Arnold apparently in contention, and with Henderson and is it Robertson that were listed as slight doubts. Robertson obviously hurt his ankle at midweek. So to have had so many injuries, so many bad. I mean, let's just say we've had 7 VAR overturns, but they haven't been 7 bad VAR overturns, have they? Some of them were perfectly legitimate. I have no problem with some of them. But when you think of all the things that have gone on and all the teams we've played, to then be in this much, to even be in contention, let alone joint top, obviously second on goal difference, but to have the same number of points as Spurs, having played harder games, and then to qualify, I think we ended up winning our group in the Champions League on match week 5. And I don't think anybody else is going to have done it sooner. The others qualified sooner, but we actually ended up winning the group, with a game to spare. So you could argue that if we get everyone fit, that we could get fit, minus Van Dijk, who's thankfully back walking and doing minor exercises in the gym. Gomez probably won't return this season. But apart from those two, most players, I think, can get back. And as long as we don't lose both Matip and Fabinho, then you would think that we might have come through the worst. Do you know what I mean? I would never write anyone else off. I would think Spurs are resting 10, 11 players every midweek.
Although, funny enough, they actually played Son and Kane last night, strangely enough, which I was very surprised about.
I know he's starting Ndombele seems to be starting. I don't know why you would want to give your players extra games at this juncture, but that he has the choice, which Klopp until Friday, until Wednesday night, Klopp didn't have that option. He can now do that in the final game, but having the Europa League to keep players like Bale interested and fit, could be an advantage for Spurs. I don't think we'll walk it. I know you might be tongue in cheek there, Mark, but I think it bodes well. But there is still so much more that can go wrong. Do you know what I mean? If we lose Matip and Fabinho, then which
then you're playing, Paul. Then you're playing.
Then I'm playing. And it's bad news.
So yes, I mean it definitely is tongue in cheek, but only in the sense that you're absolutely right. The ball is round. I mean, if we consider,
it's not. We've just established with the
it's oblong.
Sausage.
So it's the very interesting thing about that observation, Paul, and you're so right, is that if we look back through the annals of even the last 50 years of league football, when Liverpool were dominant, we would win roughly once every 2 years, even though we had demonstrably the best side over the 2 years. Similarly with Manchester United, they would win roughly once every 2 years, even though they were demonstrably the best squad over the 2 years. So certainly we may fall short, but definitely with if players return and all things are equal, we should most certainly be in the title race till the last 3 weeks.
Man City favourites according to 538, Mark, and you put we should need to watch out for Man City in your article.
Yes, I'm always worried about City because we know how good they are at creating at chance creation. So my feeling is that as a season like this goes on, the problem will be that the smaller squads get a little bit fatigued, of course, and then a giant like City can really take advantage in the second half, much like we can. So I do feel that obviously, it's no surprise, but one has to watch City very closely. They can reel off 10 wins, in a row where their expected goals against never go above 0.3 or 0.4. The games are just easy and they just really cruising. So if they do that, obviously it's going to be very, very close. The one huge positive about them is that they haven't defended particularly well so far this season, nor last season. If you look at their expected goal stats right now, they're not very impressive. I mean, there was one which we were looking at in the article. I think it was the +1 goal stat, so a game state. So where they are actually a goal ahead, they're in fact losing the game after that. Very interesting. So Manchester City, with all their wherewithal and the expert coaching and the supposedly good mentality, and you'll see it there somewhere near the bottom. Yes. If you scan down, Dan, you'll see it. Yeah. Keep going because it's right near the bottom. It's a pretty poor stat for them. And you'll see that at -1, yeah, it's like 10 from the bottom. Exactly there. At +1, so when they're a goal ahead, they're in fact losing the game. They're at -0.79 against opposition after that, which is, it's quite something. If you consider that teams really, they go 1-0 down against City and suddenly they feel emboldened to attack. It's a very strange state of affairs.
Unless they're Burnley, can I just say, or Watford.
Yes, exactly.
If you haven't got a punch against them, then you are hopeless. But if you've got half a decent attack, I was shaking my head when they had City as clear favourites, because I think they've got one injury, I think, at the moment, or maybe it's just Aguero, I think, who's pretty much back. I think they've got that in their favour. They're still a great team. I'm just curious as that when their only big win, from what I can tell this season, was against Burnley, and that came after our last-minute concession of what I thought was a dubious penalty.
Abysmal. It was an abysmal decision.
So that might have emboldened them a bit, but I'm still not convinced by them so far this season. But you have to admit they've got the players, but have they been losing something with company when David Silva's gone? Are they, Aguero's getting that much older? Fernandinho is ancient. So, I'm a little bit, I'm not, for the first time, I would say, for the first season, I would say that I'm not as scared by Man City as I would have been for like three seasons straight. Even last season, when we were well ahead, I still thought City were capable of putting on a great run, but they never did. So correct. I don't know, but I mean, obviously with the injury situation, you would have to say that on that alone, at this point in time, City would have, perhaps have a better projection than we would, based purely on that. But we're 6 points ahead, having played a game more. So,
Can I ask you about the 538 model?
You can ask. I'm not sure I'll know the answer.
Well, I've been posting on the post-match, like the changes, and they were favourites at the start of the season, and then it reduced, and then after the Leicester game, we went as favourites, 47-41, I think it was, and then as soon as we drew with Brighton, even before Man City beat Burnley, they've suddenly gone shot up to 52.
Didn't it change? No, it changed when we lost to Atalanta at home.
It did change, yeah. No, that's right. Yeah. Correct. I said that, yeah.
Even though we had the same midfield of like Gini and Millie, we were clearly running on empty at that point, and that changed the whole prediction model, even though it wasn't a game that we were prioritising because we had 2 games afterwards. So,
but anyway, you can understand that to a point because it all affects their team strength model. Whatever Liverpool do, win or lose. Obviously,
I get it, yeah.
As with all models, it's not going to know that Liverpool have got 11 players out or whatever it is. It's just Liverpool didn't play very well against Atalanta. Liverpool didn't play very well against
Brighton.
Things like that, So, it does seem odd that they've got Man City so heavily favoured. But then obviously they did have better expected goal stats than Liverpool last season, and that's not just going to drop off. When we're only 10 games into this season, I don't know quite how their model works exactly, but. I think what's interesting when you look at City's XG from 538, I'm just looking at it now. Basically, their 9 games, they've got them as scoring 16 and conceding 11, which is just sort of, it's fine. But it's like there's so many narrow margins there. I think they've probably deserved to win quite a few games, but by pretty small margins. So the model is not going to dislike them, even if I think it's definitely overrating them. But
I think what was it? The Man City saw 52 when Liverpool went ahead of them after that Leicester game. How high up the rankings of 538 games was that performance for a home team? Because I remember you mentioned it. It was one out of the 19,000 games or something. It was.
Oh, what was that? The Leicester game?
The Leicester game, yeah. Our performance then. So we do a massively good performance like that by XG, and it increased our chances. So we became the favourites. It
seems every time we play Leicester, we get a performance which is in like the top 1% of everything in the 538 database, which is pretty good. So that would have affected it. I mean, I've not been sort of monitoring the bookmakers, but theirs will be the same. They've had City as favourites pretty much throughout because they'll use something sort of similar. So,
but can I just ask then, because Mark's models look at XG in game state, and we used I'm trying to think, Mark, I was quoted you in Perched, I think. It wasn't the quarterly, although you're in the quarterly, that was for something else. That was the pre-season preview. But you looked at the game states last season, which we spoke about on a summer podcast. On game state situations, Man City won the league on XG overall, but that's because once they were 2-0 or 3-0 up, they absolutely mullered teams like Watford.
Mm.
But when the game states were closer, they weren't playing particularly well, and they often ended up dropping points.
Exactly.
And the big wins overinflated. It's like goal difference.
Exactly.
I can't remember if Man City ended with the better goal difference than Liverpool last season, but they ended 18, 19 points behind, whatever it was in the end.
Yes.
And with 25 points behind.
They had a much better expected goal and a better goal difference. But your point is absolutely correct. At the most important game states, they were very good, but they were well done by Liverpool, which left them at second, especially because they were very good at the end, but I think they padded their results post lockdown substantially. I think the last 9 games, something like, and I stand to be corrected, but I think they scored 37 and conceded 6, something like that. Does that sound?
Still lost 2 games.
They still lost twice. Yeah.
They lost to Chelsea.
It does sound unlikely that 37-6 in 10 games. It sounds unlikely, but it was a bizarre number, and I think our number was 25-18, just to show how irrelevant it was to us. So that kind of helped them buck the deficit that they had. But certainly, I mean, we didn't get the name Mentality Monsters for nothing. It really has been earned at the fine margins. Liverpool are the best club in the world. There's little doubt about it. When the game is tight, I mean, under Klopp, you believe Liverpool are going to pull it out. I mean, who among us at 5-2 down to Aston Villa didn't think, hang on, let's just see what happens the next 10 minutes. That is because we really believe in the system, and we really believe that the team can just keep going and keep going and keep going. It's remarkable. I don't think City have that belief, and I think it may prove the difference this term.
I think with City, you look at David Silva, obviously offered a lot of composure and experience, and Company was, if we were mentality monsters, and that was him. He was the nearest to a Liverpool player in that sense. As much as I dislike his treatment of Salah that day, he was an absolutely outstanding player, and it just feels. Again, I still feel like City are flat track bullies, which doesn't mean that they won't still win big games, but I'm not as impressed by them overall. And someone like Ferran Torres looks a great young player, but again, sometimes your best young players shine when your team is already 2-0 up or 3-0 up or something like that. Is he going to dig in when they're behind or level? And so, I'm not as frightened by City, but that doesn't mean that right now they haven't got the advantage of a fit squad whilst we're decimated. So
it makes a big difference. I mean, if it were the other way around and City were missing the 9 players and Liverpool had only Salah injured, I mean, I don't know where we'd probably be 10 or 12 points ahead again. So the fact that we are ahead of them, it bodes well, but it's not. Of course, it's not a done deal, but it looks good. I mean, I remember Rafa saying one year, I think it was the 08-09 season, if we could get in front in January, or at least end the year in front, and then start off 2009 well, we were 80% there, and I kind of feel the same. I feel a decent December, maybe 5 wins, 2 draws, and a defeat, I think will put us really perfect. I think the last 2 years we've had 8 wins, 9 wins in a row in December. It's not going. I don't think it can happen. But I don't think any team's going to do it. Maybe City might, but still, I think if we arrive in January, players will start to return. The fixture list is kinder the second half of the season. It's definitely, to my mind, 60-40 in our favour over City. That's not notwithstanding Spurs, Chelsea, even ridiculous as it sounds. I mean, United win their game in hand and they're only 2 points behind us, which is remarkable.
That sounds too ridiculous. That sounds too ridiculous. Let's not. So Manchester United are not winning the Premier League this season.
No, I wouldn't.
I don't own a house, but if I had one.
The thing with United is they're always under Solskjaer. They always seem really good when the game, when the pressure's up, when it's thrown in the towel. We're not good enough. and then they'll go on a good run, and then the people say, "Oh, Man United are really good," and the hype will start to build, and then instantly they'll fall off a cliff again.
Yes.
You have to.
Yes.
One just thing I'd like to say about them is that they are still, although they bought Cavani, they were, I think, the youngest of all the big six last year. This year, you would expect some of those players to start maturing, but and that, they've added players as well. I'm still. I think if they ever got ahead in the title race, they would instantly collapse. That would be my gut.
Agreed. I mean, they don't seem to possess the mentality to go any sort of distance. But it's a very strange season. I mean, it's just very difficult. I mean, if we continue to lose players at the rate we are, then I suppose any one of these others can win it, really. I mean, City being the favourites. But I mean, if Liverpool was suddenly to be docked 15 points, I guess who would be the most excited? Manchester
They will try. They will try. If they go 14 points ahead.
They will try.
Klopp has said today that the Premier League didn't even discuss the 5 subs, I think, this week, or he was, it's amazing that all the other countries and even the Football League have introduced the 5 subs. But I keep calling them the little 14. But the non big 6 are basically just voting down everything, because if they get together as a voting bloc, they can just
control the league.
Nothing can change, and they can just protect their own interests. And of course, everybody is protecting their interests. But when you need is it a 14 club majority you need as well? Is that the voting thing to change something? Does it need 14?
That's right, AB's 14 clubs.
Yeah. So it's almost, it's going to be really hard to change anything. And the narrow-mindedness of England over that just sort of, I don't know, it seems emblematic at the moment of just, nobody can get together. And Klopp has said that good luck to Gareth Southgate basically in the summer. It's all right for everyone now to not care about player welfare, and it's just Liverpool with an injury crisis. But by the end of the season, playing every 3 days. And another thing I just wanted to bring up was when is the FA Cup? We've got Aston Villa again, haven't we? So when
usually the first weekend in January.
I just wondered if they changed that this season, because the draw seems very early this year. Is that?
I don't. Nor do I care.
But it's a good job we're out then because the
League Cup's in January as well.
No, the League Cup's in December, I think. Is that right?
Have a look at the old fixtures.
I can't remember who's in the League Cup. I don't care.
Arsenal, the great Arsenal knocked us out. The great Arsenal, the wonderful Arsenal side, who also won the Charity Shield.
Did they knock us out on penalties? Was it penalties last season and penalties this season?
It was pens, yeah. No, we knocked them out last season after a 5-1 draw.
Yeah. So penalties both years, was it? I'm trying to think. I can't remember this year's because we lost. So
yeah, it was.
So I'm just thinking that Klopp is just going to put out the weakest side possible, surely, against Aston Villa, which he would have done in the League Cup semi-finals. But I'm trying to think who are the 4 teams in the League Cup semis who have got those 2 games, or is it just 1 game this year?
Just
I'm
one.
trying to think. I think they've just made it just 1, haven't they?
Yeah.
So
I'm not even going to Google League Cup. I refuse.
No. It's just another fixture that gets in the way. We don't need it.
We don't need it. I want to talk about this, Paul. Tell me what this is. Tell me what this is.
Shiny book.
Shiny book. We're all in it.
Or our work is.
Mark, you made some predictions at the start of the season, didn't you?
Well, I just have to say one thing first. I was very unfortunately, I was one of the few idiots who was against the 5 substitutes. So I'm very embarrassed about that position. That has turned out in hindsight to be quite a bad call that I made. I can't actually even remember what I think the prediction was that Liverpool should take it home, kind of high 80s finish. I still feel very confident about that.
Sorry, just to interrupt. Your copy, Mark, by the way, is on its way to South Africa. Obviously, the postal system. I think did Perch take about 3 months to get to you or something, didn't it? So
months.
But your predictions were good. I think there were a couple that were.
Were they? What
were
did I
off.
say?
I think generally they were pretty sound.
Yeah, I think the main the main thrust of the predictions that I was trying to kind of coax out was that there'd be a lot more goals, which would harm the consistency, generally speaking, of what you might see in a normal league table, and I think that has definitely come to pass. It's made it all a little bit unpredictable, I guess. You're getting these 7-2 score lines. The 5-2 Leicester victory at City was a strange one. Even the 6-1 Spurs victory against United was very strange. So I felt that would happen due to the lack of crowds. I'm not entirely certain how the second half's going to go. We're going to get half of the, or not half. We're going to get a number of fans back, thank God, on Sunday. I don't know what impact that's going to have. I don't know. It's difficult to call. It was very, very, very difficult to call.
Yeah, I mean we'll say with the quarterly, some of us sat down. I wrote a whole new chapter on the season so far, which was up to the last international break. I think Bees, you put together some of your, asked you to combine the defensive and attacking sides of Liverpool's game. I can't remember what was the metric it was looking at.
Pressing mainly.
Pressing, that was it.
Yeah.
And so the pressing side. I mean, I'm trying to think what the basic takeaway from that was. It was impressive, I think, if I seem to remember.
Well, it was very impressive in attack, and in defence, it was sort of pondering about the idea that it looks like something has possibly changed. But I think it's going to be very hard to tell now if something's changed when, the team changes every week. If you don't have a consistent team, it's probably hard to judge a fair conclusion. But at the point it was written, it was certainly suggesting that something might be changing in terms of how they're pressing at the back and how they're pressing players on the ball and stuff like this. But it'll be worth revisiting, but how much it'll tell us now remains to be seen. But that was the gist of it, basically.
I think it's been a few weeks since I've read it all through, so I'm trying to remember. I didn't know we would be. I thought we might plug it, but I didn't know we were going to be talking about it. So I think, Daniel, you wrote a piece just about the soullessness of football right now, but you'd still take watching Liverpool over not watching anything. Is that
absolutely
right?
Yeah? Well, but also the fact that we've still got to celebrate winning the league together as fans, and we've got that to look forward to. That is something that it's incredibly depressing that we wait 30 years to celebrate a league, to winning the league, and then we're doing it on Zoom and podcasts, and there's been no parade. And Klopp's first words in his interview were it will come. We're going to celebrate it together, and it's just then watching football with fucking shite crowd noise superimposed that's badly timed. It's like some awful arty film with subtitles where it's not even synced to the actual events, and it's just like everything that Klopp's side and stood for was the fans, and he got the fans on side, and then I think you can see something in his eyes that he's going, I don't like this.
I don't think anyone. I mean, one thing I started thinking was, a few times I've said I'm done with this. Part of this season, partly due to VAR, and it kind of feels, in some ways, it feels even more annoying because you're not getting the full satisfaction of the good times. You're just getting the frustration of the VAR decisions and stuff like that. And it's harder to, although it's not connected to the crowds, it's harder to celebrate goals. It got to the point recently where every goal we scored, it's gone, and it would either be clearly offside or it would be, I wouldn't even think it was offside. So, and then the free kick with Fabinho, and so it just feels all that added to lack of atmosphere and the kind of it's just all add up. I mean, I still haven't even thought about the title celebrations. I mean, you've just mentioned it now. We haven't had that release yet, that proper
fans going into Wolves this weekend.
But I mean, you've got a couple of thousand going in, but I mean, when we don't know what's going to happen with the vaccine, it could still be next spring, summer, and if we end up finishing 5th or 6th this season because we just literally run out of players, and we are, we run out of under 23s, we're out with them playing the under 18s, we run out of those, and then we try and
a decent under 18 side. There's a great thread on TTT about it this week. Get subscribing, £5.
They are. If I get any subscriptions from that, you're on extra commission, Dave. But if we finish 6th, will there be this mood of Klopp's lost? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't take much for fans to get disenchanted with the manager, and will there be that same feeling? I mean,
I'm not interested in those fans.
No,
I'm going back in time to that.
But if we all,
Chelsea game,
if we all congregate somewhere and half the people there are miserable because we've finished 6th this year, I'm not. It doesn't count. Winning the league doesn't count anymore. You know what I mean?
They need to find a new sport.
Well, yeah, I agree.
You wait 30 years and then you've got to wait another 12, 18 months.
But if we win it this year,
year,
do we have a double celebration? Do you know what I mean? Would that?
Yeah, imagine that.
It's a trampoline double bounce if we win this year.
Yeah,
piggyback on last season.
Or if we win the Champions League this year, I just think that it's going to be. There's a chance. I just worry that the moment will have gone. Do you know what I mean? And I think there are people, and we need to get together as a group of people, as a group of fans, as communities, when we can. Yeah. I think we need to make that effort to
definitely
recapture the moment. But I do think
a little bit harder for Mark, Paul. Me, you and Bees might be able to get a trade somewhere.
I'll fly in.
Mark can fly in.
I'll fly in. Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. If there's going to be a proper party, I'll fly in. No doubt.
I mean, I think wherever you are, if you get together with your local fans, we have a lot of subscribers from places like Singapore, Australia, America, as well as England and a lot in Merseyside. Wherever you are, I think whether you come into the city for the celebrations or not, there needs to be some kind of
the moment.
Yeah, and if we can get and how you would get that moment back, and I think that all it would take would be Jurgen Klopp to be there. The man could start a party.
Falling off the bus.
Yeah, he is a one-man atmosphere creator, isn't he? So
he is.
So it's weird. It's almost. It's not true, but I was thinking maybe we shouldn't win the league this year to not complicate the celebrations, so we can have the proper celebrations for last year. But then, no. If we're going to do that, we might as well celebrate winning the league this year as well. So,
what I think Bob Paisley would have said to you. He'd have said, "Listen, if you're not sure whether to win the league or not, just win it, and then we'll talk about it after."
Yeah. And he did, and mostly he did.
He did, no doubt.
So yes,
brilliant.
So books. I was just thinking.
Yeah, Paul, you've got other Perched for Christmas. Go and buy it. Yeah, look at that view.
Yeah, brilliant book, fellas.
And.
Yes, Bees.
Design.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, that's Bees' 18 to 19. That's yours, Bees.
Yeah, that's mine. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Available in no good bookshops, but just on Amazon.
On one bad one, which is Amazon. Same. But yeah, it's. And I say, I've been talked into video podcasting, which I've said I would never do. I guess that
you're a YouTube sensation now, Paul. I think that's the phrase. A YouTube influencer. I don't know what the phrase.
Influencer has to be up there with my least favorite word.
Yeah, mine.
It's a synonym for wanker, I think. But
It's-
we've got to try and, I mean, we are mostly grumpy middle-aged blokes.
as you can tell.
There are some grumpy middle-aged women on the site as well.
Absolutely.
And some really grumpy old people. We've got to move with the times.
Is this your advertising pitch?
Yeah, this is. I've always been about the hard sell. You know what?
No adverts though, thankfully. Yet.
No adverts. I hate promote. I've always done it because I've had to, but I hate the hard sell stuff, and I don't like running adverts because most of it is bullshit. I don't like being advertised to. But we have to. We have to put our word out there. I find myself listening to more. I still do a hell of a lot of reading, but I also listen to a lot of audio books and podcasts, and people watch YouTube apparently.
You want to try it? It's decent site. It's got some decent. Got the odd clip on there.
Yeah, but if I go onto it, it will start telling me that I need to look at this video about how the Earth is really flat.
Yes,
and
not to get a vaccine.
Oh yeah, don't
start.
So we have a YouTube presence now, I guess, but writing is still. I don't know how long writing is going to exist for. I mean, attention spans as the film about Facebook and Instagram, the social dilemma. A lot of it talks about how attention spans have dropped, and yet people can watch or listen to it. Not that we're going to go on for 3 hours, but people can do consume 3 hours of stuff that way. But I don't know.
Joe Rogan's the most popular podcast, and his go on for hours and hours and hours sometimes.
Exactly. But do people spend 3 hours reading articles or reading books? Maybe not as much. But that's what I always feel I'm good at, is writing and not broadcasting. But if that's how people discover our site and which isn't just full of miserable old people and miserable middle-aged people. There are some miserable younger people on there as well. No teenagers.
Beautiful.
No, nobody under the age of 25 pays for anything on the internet anyway. So if you're happy to pay and come and be part of a good community, then I'm all for that. But it's kind of like, you've got to pay for the. I still think. What was it that they said in the social dilemma? The saying was that if you're not paying for a product, you are the product. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of opposite of TTT. We don't track you. We don't sell anything else to you apart from our own work, or each other's work.
Oh, definitely selling this.
Books, so we try and bring out more product that people want, rather than trying to start selling, sort of getting paid to run adverts for a load of old bollocks that we don't believe in. And
365 offers, or manscaping is the one that's going on a lot now on the podcast, isn't it? All the adverts are about fucking manscaping.
Yeah, well,
okay, now
this is.
I did see the most wonderful meme the other day, which really I should have put straight onto TTT. It was remarkably good. It said Joe Biden 303, Donald Trump 220, Liverpool 4, Barcelona 3 under the this is the electoral college results. I really enjoyed it.
A couple of weeks ago.
yeah, indeed.
That is a game that still keeps giving, and that is a game that I watched again, I think in the summer.
It's a wonderful game.
But it just depressed me so much about
fans, and agreed.
You just think, imagine that. I mean, that game would have been amazing without fans, because it was amazing. If the game had been exactly the same, obviously cause and effect. You can't detach the effect that the crowd had. But if you watch that game without a crowd, it would be great, but it would be sort of strangely sterile as well. Which is what
no, that's a fact. I mean, that third goal, the second Genie goal, was in my 41 years, that was the best moment I've ever had in sport, including the Champions League 2005.
Wow.
Just the way it was already, the whole of Anfield was already going nuts, anticipating something special at 3-2, and for it to happen basically off kickoff, it was just, it was delirium. It was an amazing moment. So and that was because he scored it at the Kop end. It was special.
Were you still recovering then when Divock scored? Because that's my moment.
Dan, the truth is when Divock scored, the shock was just, it happened so fast, and there wasn't really a build-up
quickly.
Yeah, exactly, literally. It was quickly. We were all chatting about, we got 10 minutes left till extra time. We're looking good. We've stopped creating. They're not really trying, and then the ball was in the back of the net. The other thing was this flowing move where Divock gets the ball down the right, then he chips too far over the top, then Shaqiri recovers, gives it to Milner. It's a whole spiel of things going on, and you just, what's going to happen, and then the ball's in, and then you're watching this move and the ball goes in. It was just, it was spectacular. In
Love
sport,
it.
It was amazing. It was an amazing moment.
The Origi goal reminds me of this season a bit, in that I don't know if I even celebrated it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because something was wrong. When you...
yeah. It's like they've started too early. They've got to wait for the ref's whistle.
Exactly. Come on, bring it back. Kick. Something wasn't right, and then it's kind of like you're waiting. Whereas now, it feels like something is right. You seem to score goals that seem... not all of them, but a lot of them seem great.
Salah scored a quality goal with a brilliant finish.
The Henderson goal at Everton, I celebrated almost as much as that as when we beat Bar. That was.
Agreed.
I nearly lost my voice.
And then
sitting by myself watching it.
For that come down was. As we know, that was a bad game. That was a bad day, and
terrible feeling. Terrible feeling.
And I think that that's kind of it sort of sums up this season. If we can perhaps wrap this up, that kind of sums up everything that I just dislike about this season is that the lack of fans, and then the petty bureaucracy of the VAR. And but maybe this weekend, it's a new start. 2,000 fans inside Anfield. It's going to be weird. It's not going to be rocking, but it's the first step towards some kind of normality, and that's got to be a good thing. And if players start getting fit, I don't know what the obviously, Thiago, people still don't. That's a mystery with his knee, because he's apparently still getting pain. Yeah. But then Van Dijk and Gomez, apart from those two, I'm trying to think. We could end up with all but 3 players back, hopefully, barring new catastrophes. I'm just wondering when does anyone know? Mid-December, is that a kind of time where you could think, well, Oxlade-Chamberlain's going to be back as well?
I don't think they know on Ox either, because he's been out with his knee for such a long time. But Klopp did list them in kind of possible return order, and I think Ox did come before Thiago in that list. But I don't think they know with either. Ox has obviously had massive complications before.
Yeah.
But I think Trent, Naby, Milner, they're all due back.
Alisson's due back in a week.
After the Midtjylland game. Yeah.
So I would just say one of the things I've been concluding this week is just that while I think we've shown that we can battle through, I don't think we can keep battling through.
Yeah.
If we have to keep using the same players every 3 or 4 days. I don't, especially when key players like Matip, Fabinho have had. Matip's had a ton of injuries. Fabinho's had one muscle injury per season, one or two.
And never previously missed a game injured for seasons for any team.
You know, maybe it's just bad luck on Fabinho's part. Maybe we can rely on him. But it was with Milner, you just knew that every game he played every 3 or 4 days, which is why Matip completely sat out the Atalanta game, I think, was it that he missed? Or was it the weekend? Matip was just left out completely.
Game, yeah.
Because if you had played him, his risk of what happened to Milner was even greater. So
3 games a week is too much for Joel.
Yeah,
there's no doubt. There's no doubt.
And for a whole team, if Klopp can't rotate during this period, so it's not just the injuries, it's the fact that there's no rotation available. If you have fewer injuries, then it becomes a virtuous circle, and you can then start to protect the players and rotate the players. So I'm kind of.
And implement the tactics that have been so successful for you, which is high intensity pressing, which needs a lot of energy and fatigues players very quickly.
If you think back to last December, who did we play this time last December? Does anyone remember?
I remember that December quite well.
Everton was the first game in December.
Everton.
Yeah.
Was it?
Remember the absolute
rotation, massive.
The 5-2. Yeah, 5-2. Amazing game.
Why is he? What's Klopp doing? He's left out. You know, he's playing Shaqiri. He's playing Origi. He's dropped. You know, there's no way we're going to win this. Everyone was going mad. But that was I think after Napoli, and you know, so that was just like a really conscious decision to rotate. But if those same players had been playing every week, you know, every 3 days for a month beforehand, then we don't get that performance. No. They might be on a better wavelength, but they'll be absolutely knackered. So,
and he always rotates against Everton. He does not care for them at all.
As it showed in the cup as well when Curtis scored the winner.
He does not care about them in the sort of derby sense at all. He views them as what they are, which is a team that aren't that good, although they are a bit better this season. You know, he's always rotated against them because it's a good opportunity to, and we usually win. So,
can I just ask about the Everton Cup game? Was that this year?
Yep.
Yes,
January.
No, that was 4 years ago.
It feels like fucking 4 years ago,
doesn't it? It's just. You know, that was kind of even better because it was like, I really don't give a shit about this game. I need to protect my players. I'm going to play the kids.
And then Jones has the nerve to hit them from 30 yards also. That's Liverpool for you. You can see why they.
So, are we done? Is that it?
That's the end. Unless anyone's got anything else to add. Any other business? I think they call it in the podcasting world.
Any housekeeping? Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to the 43 views that we get for this one.
You're optimistic.
The kids, what the kids really want is 4 middle-aged white guys.
We can change one mind. You know,
facial hair, talking nonsense about football. That's what the world needs. The kids are up for that. So
with XG screenshots, that's all we want.
It's going to be a great formula. So anyway, no, I mean, you know, thanks a lot, guys, and
recording's finished now. So
thank you, Dan. Thanks, Paul. Great to see you.
Now Daniel says, "Oh, right, now we can do it again, but we'll hit record this time."